So I knew I was thinking about leaving. I knew I was thinking that there might be an alternative way to live at some point in my life, but I hadn't quite gotten the clarity around that. Clarity is the key word.
You're listening to This Ish with Le Pils. I'm sitting in my car in my carport looking at my front door wondering, how did I get here? I was nurturing a sort of nomadic trend for at least 10 years. Purposefully, I didn't have my own place. I didn't have an apartment, a house, not even a tiny house or a van. So how I came to the decision to buckle up, so to speak, like I'm buckled up now in my car, ready to drive to Malmö, Sweden for a conversation with a nomad woman, I'll get into in more detail in a future episode. In the first episode, I talked about someone who sold everything she owned to become a sort of nomad, and that's this episode. I'll be talking to Elizabeth Dagger, who decided to find out what it feels like to live in this world without a plan. And one of the ingredients she's found that really works for this experiment is trust. It's also to have clarity before you make this kind of decision in your life. So let's hear how Elizabeth has been nurturing trust. How did that even come to happen?
It's so interesting because people use the word nomadic a lot, and I never equated it with being a nomad, but I guess that's what it is. And my story, 2021, coming out of COVID, like 3 years of COVID. I was living in Austin, Texas. I'd lived there for 13 years. Cool house, had everything I needed. It was a place of creativity and joy and music, and I ran children's classes there, women's workshops. I'm an artist, so it was my own personal studio, and sometimes was transformed into a gallery. And it's very peaceful, surrounded by all the live oak trees, and I just loved it. It was my sanctuary. But, I had planted a seed in 2018 going to Europe for a couple of months, and I rented my house just to see what it would be like. So I knew I was thinking about leaving, but I hadn't quite gotten the clarity. So I took off, asked my brother who lives in London if I could come for a couple of months, and I got a manager to, Airbnb, manage my house, rent it, clean it, all that sort of stuff while I was away. And the discovery was that it didn't really give me what I needed, And when I was renting my house, when I was still in Austin, I had to stay with friends. And I didn't like that feeling of having a house and not being in my house.
So what do you mean by saying it did not give you what you needed? What did you need? What did you think you needed at that point?
Freedom to make choices. So it didn't give me the financial freedom that I needed to make the choices that I wanted, the freedom that I needed to travel throughout the world. And I'm not talking 4 stars or, the Ritz-Carlton or anything like that. I'm a very simple person, but, that money that renting the house went to the bills. Right. Went to the mortgage, went to the electricity bills, the air bills, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I was still responsible for all that. And then I came home and traveled a bit more, and then decided to stay and relax. And then COVID happened, So then I'm like so grateful that I had my house, because that's where I was for the next couple of years, right? As we all waited to see what this virus was how it was going to affect our lives, what it was going to do. And then February 2021, sort of moving out of that, and the spring is coming. But right before the spring, there was a total freeze over Austin, and people couldn't get out of their homes. They lost their electricity. Water pipes broke, so they lost their water, and it was a nightmare. And I kept thinking, oh my God, something's going to explode. I'm going to have like a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 problem, and I couldn't afford that, nor did I want to deal with it. That didn't happen to me, thank God. Thank God it didn't happen to me. So then when the thaw came, I got super clear, and I was like, now's the time. So I put my house on the market, found a real estate broker, figured out what I needed to do to make that happen, and then they told me to skedaddle out of town because...
So I'm curious what goes into making that decision? What process did you go through emotionally and spiritually?
Yeah, like I said, I think I planted the seed in 2018. What I discovered from a Facebook post today, memory that popped up, was I actually planted that seed in 2016 doing a pictorial story of where I thought my life wanted to go. And I was living in Europe,
Right.
with my own gallery, dressed in really beautiful girly clothes, which, I'm not obviously not in right now. You're sitting right across from me. Never in girly clothes, but I like the idea of it. So the seed was planted, and again, it goes back to clarity. Do I want to be sitting on this couch? Do I want to be in this town? Do I want to be creating in this space? It was too safe, or I was just going through the days. I just felt like I was going through the day to the next day. I didn't feel like I was living. I didn't feel like I was experiencing anything. And I'm now in my 50s, and I thought, man, if I don't do something now, I might lose the window, because I don't want to go out there into the world and be too old, or, have a broken hip, or, be on a walker, or have a saggy ass or drippy boobs. I mean, I didn't want any of that. I was like, now's the time to go. I'm still vivacious. I was feeling vivacious. And I also wanted to reconnect with that young, beautiful, happy, joyful, curious spirit that I was when I was a young woman, before I had a child, before I had responsibilities, before I had a mortgage, before I had any of those things. I wanted to go back selfishly to taking care of me and only me, to gift myself the opportunity to see what it would be like to live in the world without a plan.
I think that people who have not ever made the choice to leave where they're from or where they are and feel safe to go into the world would find it interesting, maybe even difficult to reach this point where you want to be free. I think a lot of people might dream, especially our age. We've been through life, we had kids, we had responsibilities, and like you so wonderfully put it, feel the girly energy, revisit that spirit that we knew when we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever get that it's, oh, you're so courageous?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I think that's what people would have said that about me. Oh, you're so courageous. Mm-hmm. You have such courage. And when we're like we are, I don't think I look at it as courage. I look at it as, well, this is natural to me. What I find when I thought, wow, I'm courageous, is when I finally decided to, okay, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to be the owner of a house and take that responsibility. That to me is courageous. So you made that choice to be feeling, how is it not to have a plan?
Mm-hmm.
How has that been?
I look at this as an experiment, this past 2 years, an experiment in trust. Trusting that everything I've done up to this point has led me to this place in this moment right now, and I'm fine, I'm great, I'm happy, everything's okay. So it's all good, right? And then trusting that if I keep moving forward and taking action with my curiosity and my experiences and my forward mobility, that I will trust that whatever is going to happen is supposed to happen, and I will be safe. And so far, I've been safe. I've never been without, a place to sleep, even though I'm like, trying to book a room on a train going somewhere at the last minute. It always works out. It always works out. And then I've met the most incredible people. But, the fact is, and a lot of people ask me this, how can you do this? How can you afford to do that? That's the question nobody wants to ask. And then timidly, sometimes they do. And that's totally valid. I used to think that when I saw people travel, even on vacations, not just letting go of everything. And the only way I was able to get what I needed to be able to do this was to sell my house. And because I bought it very cheaply in Austin, Texas, and At the time that I sold it, the market was insane. Everybody was moving there, and the prices had escalated. So you could say I took advantage of that, and I did. So buy low, sell high, you know. So that gave me the finances that I needed. And like I said before, it doesn't cost me that much. I think it costs me less to live the way that I'm living now than it would be to own a house and pay all those bills.
Was there ever a point where you didn't feel what you feel right now, sitting here, great about yourself, happy, and all that? Did you ever doubt your experiment?
Nope. I never have doubted my experiment.
How cool
I'm
is
still
that?
on the experiment. I have never regretted one decision I made once I got the clarity. And when you get clarity, I don't care where it is, just, in a relationship, in a job, in a lifestyle, in whatever it is, it can take a lot. And sometimes it can take years to get to that space. But once you have it, and then I'm riding on the top of a tidal wave, effortlessly, surfing, in an awesome bikini, looking really fit.
Cool, you are.
It's like,
I see it.
And I'm just riding the wave in flawlessly, and it's a really great feeling. The only, sadness that I've experienced in the past 2 years was the death of my mom. So, I returned home. She lived in Florida for several months to be with her. And I don't regret that decision because, how often in our 50s can we go back and spend, amazing quality time with our mothers? I didn't have a job. My son was grown, doing his life. So I could be 100% with my mother. And she taught me a lot without teaching me anything towards the end of her life, which was integrity, joyfulness, curiosity, and, always looking at the world through a pair of rose-colored glasses, literally, because she never saw the negative or the bad. It didn't mean she didn't have an edge to her. And she encouraged me to do this. She wanted me to travel and live my life. She's my biggest champion in every area of my life. I miss her. But so that
champion, and do you think also a great inspiration?
Yes, I look at it now, but I didn't when I was in it. And maybe that's, relationships that we have with our parents. I see myself now living very much the life she had in between her relationships. So she took advantages of those times and never sat around. And that's what I felt I was doing in Austin. Even though I was productive, I had this sense that I was just sitting around waiting for life to happen, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for love. I didn't feel at that time that I was taking action. So this was the biggest action that I could take. Selling the house was flawless. It happened very fast when I made that clear decision. I was going to keep all my things. Like, I loved my couch. I wasn't going to give it up. And then I wasn't going to give up that lamp. And then I wasn't going to give up that. And it wasn't. So everything's in storage. But then the closer I got to, not literally storage in my head, and then the closer I got to actually signing the paperwork for the house, I'm like, well, I don't need to keep that. I don't need to keep that. Certainly don't need to keep that. And all of a sudden I just had this massive yard sale. Everybody came and bought things. Everybody came and bought art. The marketing blip. I'm selling my house and everything in it. Goodbye, come say goodbye, hello, whatever. And what followed were texts and emails and from women mostly, like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? I'm following you. I want to do it too. I'm not there yet, but I'm going to be ready to let go of everything, and so I just started telling my story.
What do you think is holding back these women?
I can't speak to their story, but what I've observed or witnessed in my own life and looking at other people's is, people are very grounded in their homes,
right.
And their things. Mm-hmm. And it's a place of safety and solitude and memories and home-cooked meals and all of that. And, and I had all that. And I had all that in my upbringing. And then in the raising of my child, I too bought a house later in life because I felt that that was something I needed to do for myself and for my son, mostly, to provide a home. So I left Los Angeles and moved to Austin, Texas, because that's where I could afford to buy a home. And they had an excellent school system, public school system. I could not do that in Los Angeles, you know. But I think it's a safety net.
I think you're right that one is grounded in one's home, whatever home is. And now your home, I suppose, is you. You are your home. Or how do you create?
This little yellow bag here is my home. Right now.
Your little fjellreven bag is your home. But how do you create the sense of I am grounded? Not in my house, I am grounded.
I breathe a lot. And I think a lot, and I try not to judge myself or what's going on in the world. You know, I try and simply embrace the space in which I'm at. I'm also incredibly lucky that I have an amazing brother, you know, that welcomes me into his home whenever I need a place of family. And he happens to live in London, which is always a great stop, moving from the United States to Europe or wherever else I go. You know, so that's become sort of a home to me. And then I have friends that offer me places to stay. I have so many offerings of places to stay in the United States or other places because people are encouraging about the lifestyle I've chosen right now. And they're excited. Not one person has ever told me, you're making a mistake. That's not a great idea. You should rethink that. You need to buy a place. Everyone's like, you know, it's like chariots of fire, and they're all on the sidelines, and I'm going to, you know, buy, and they're like, yay, there she goes. It's very rewarding and empowering and encouraging, and that's why I don't doubt any of the choices that I've made, and I keep moving forward. And I do believe that, you know, sooner or later I'm going to land, because, you know, I'm going to want to be in a space, a new space that I create around the aura of me, not bringing in the past or history or other people's things, creating a spot that's
new chapter.
You know, authentic, and present.
You know, I was thinking the finding the groundedness or the security of whatever it is that everybody, I think, seek. And if you have your home, your piece of whatever your home is, and you're surrounded by family and friends, that's your nest. When you don't have that or don't do that, and you're out and about in the world or in society or wherever it is, for me, I think that it requires an openness. You say trust. I think it requires this openness to be sending out an energy to others that I'm not a threat. I'm just sort of here, open. So let's have a conversation. And in that, I am reminded of the Tennessee Williams character Blanche Dubois from the play and film Streetcar Named Desire, where she has this thing about the kindness of strangers. She is a loner, but she puts her trust in the kindness of strangers. Does that resonate? That you have to put your trust in the kindness of others.
Yeah, that completely resonates to me, and that always shows up. That has been showing up tenfold in this experiment of mine, my experiment of trust. And I like that you said openness, because, you know, that's another way in which I present myself each new day, is the openness of what may come, the openness of experience, the openness of opportunity, the openness of friendship, the openness of the unknown. Because many times I'm planning to go somewhere at the last minute just because I want to leave somewhere. I'm done, you know, but that's not possible because I've made no plan. So there's no ticket to these destinations. So I have to say, in whatever language I'm trying to communicate in, where can I go? And conductors, you know, ticket people get very confused with that. They're like, we don't understand what you mean. And I'm like, well, where can you send me? And they're like, but where do you want to go? And I said, well, I want to go somewhere where I can't go, because you said there's no ticket. So where can I go? It doesn't matter to me. And that's how I ended up in Nice in the south of France, for like a month.
Not a bad place to end up.
Certainly not. Nothing's been bad. But, I've met incredible people that my world has gotten so much bigger.
Right.
I have friends in countries that I didn't know I had friends in those countries, and invitations. And I've had art residencies. I've had art exhibitions, in different countries, and sold things because of this. So I don't have to have that big studio. I mean, it's so funny. So, all the things that I thought I needed.
Yeah. But still, you did say that you will settle because you're going to have a space.
I think so.
But at the same time, you have experience. Not having a space does not hold you back from creating art that is shown, shared, and sold.
Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. I just know myself, and I think I might be coming to a place. I don't know if it's in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, another year. I don't know, because time is so surreal, right? Can't put it. That's the other thing. No time limits on anything. Allow the time to happen in the time in which it takes.
Right.
Don't manipulate it. It does happen when it happens anyway, no matter how hard I try and push it in a different direction.
Does that take disappointment out of the picture? Because
I
think disappointment comes when you have this idea and you try to bend reality to the, for instance, concept of time, and then it doesn't really show up that way and you're disappointed.
It's expectation.
Yeah.
You have no hold,
So taking out expectations
removes the disappointment.
Right.
Because if you don't expect anything, you can't really be disappointed.
And that would, I think, automatically bring greater joy.
Yeah. I've experienced a great sense of, and it took a while to decompress. It's not like, boom, sold my house, I was relaxed. There are other things going on in my life. So, but 2 years into it, which I am now,
you feel decompressed?
I am beginning to feel like a state of relaxation that I haven't felt in decades.
Wow.
Feels good. I think one of the major epiphanies I had, and it's really so simple, I felt like I needed a big soul plunge. I needed to get some stuff out. Several months after my mother had died, I was just grieving. I thought the best thing I could do was to get up, get on a plane, and go to Costa Rica and have a shamanic experience. So I did. And on day 2, I thought I had this profound epiphany. And I remember sitting up and all the stars were out and there were people humming and singing, and all very magical. And I had brought a notebook, but I couldn't see anything. And I kept writing and turning the pages and writing and writing.
In the dark?
Yes, and I kept writing because I couldn't see if I had written anything. And I was like, keeps disappearing. The words keep disappearing. The next day, I looked at it. I was like, it is what it is. 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 Upside down, sideways, backwards, on every page, big, small. It is what it is. And it sounds stupid or simple, but it's also very profound because it truly is what it is. And if it were something else, it would be.
It's taking the judgment out of whatever it is, a situation, a goal, a person, a place. When you take out the judgment, the expectation, judgment, and whatever outcome, when you take all that out, I think that it rings very true, it is what it is. A lot of people say it, but I have a sense a lot of people say it because it's sort of like, it's the saying these days.
Kind of a castaway. It's kind of not dealing with it. Oh, well, it is what it is. When in fact, what I felt is it is what it is. The world, the universe, God, spirituality, your presence, yourself, your soul. And it is in the moment in which I am at right now. Present. 100% present. And that is a beautiful gift. That's a beautiful recognition. That's a beautiful observance of oneself, I think. and stop searching for something that it is not. It was truly awakening then.
Yeah.
Truly awakening. So
you embodied it.
It was a reminder, a kick in the ass, And there was such relief in that. Like all the worry went away. I do feel that I will create a home somewhere again. So until there's clarity, there isn't any reason for me to act on anything except for the opportunities that show up in the moment. And then I can choose yes. or no.
And there's room for maybe.
Yeah, always.
Which in the normal world, there can't be many maybes. I've realized, because I do a lot of maybe. And a lot of people they have a strong reaction to that. Some people even get very angry. I don't understand maybe. It's yes or it's no. Well, but not to me. It's not my policy, but it's just the way it is. There is always the maybe in between the yes and the no.
Yes, well, maybe your maybe is not so much maybe as it is about percolating. The ideas are stewing. You're weighing the decision, you're mediating between yes or no, and then you make a choice.
Yeah, you could do that when you're living a life where there is not a very strong commitment to a certain timeline. Like it's got to happen between here and there, and I do this every day from here to there, and in a month and in a week, I know exactly what the calendar is looking like. That kind of lifestyle, which is a normal lifestyle, at least in this part of the world.
A norm
Denmark,
in
Sweden,
society, because
things
we're
are
told.
on a schedule.
In America as well.
There's no time for percolation. Or maybes. In this podcast and in life, I cherish the stuff that's in between yes and no, between black and white, between right and wrong. And that's why it's called This-ish Podcast.
I think without it being the intention, I've somehow planted little seeds in other people's lives that allow them the opportunity, a new way to think like, I could do that. There's all sorts of ways to live. And I grew up thinking that there was only one way to live. And it was very programmed through decades of your life. You go through school, and you go to college, then you get a job, you get married, you get a baby, you retire, and you live happily ever after. I don't know. It happens to some people. Doesn't happen to a lot of people, but I'm in love with the idea that it does happen with some people. I have friends that are still married and living that life when they got together in their 20s. But there are all ways in which we can live, right? And this is just one of them. And I'm not telling people, I would never tell people to, be brave, be courageous, give up everything you own, because they're like, how did you do it? And I said, well, I sold everything I own. It's the only way I could do it. I didn't have a bank account. People don't have to do that, but there are ways to have a certain amount of freedom to try it out. It just opens the door for a different conversation of sharing stories. And that's how I think we all communicate anyway. How are we going to embrace our humanity, that we are equal? We are equal human beings,
Right.
Takes out the separation by making your world bigger, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And so, that's all for this episode. Stay tuned for episode 3, dropping in a week, when I'll talk to Bill Gurr about what it feels like to lose part of your nose and to live with a diagnosis, and how to avoid self-pity and going into darkness because of it. I'd appreciate your comments, and feel free to share stories on trust or distrust in the commentary of whatever platform you're listening on. Preferably send me an email from my website or find it in the bio on Instagram, This-ish Podcast. This episode was created and produced by me, Lepels. Thank you very much to Elizabeth Decker. You can find out more about her on Instagram at The Shift Is On 2021, her travel profile, and at Eli Decker, her art profile.